Moin moin, hello and welcome ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another tip review. And today I'm reviewing the BGVP Foam tips. And yeah, those are from the, I want to say, more budget-renowned company BGVP. And yeah, when I saw that they make kind of more ball-shaped foam tips, I was pretty intrigued by them, because I generally do like foam tips, and my main problem with most of them is, well, that they're just too long. And so it gets a bit difficult to get them in my ear canal probably. So yeah, ordered these, and yeah, in today's review we will take a look at them, what they can, what they can't, and how do they stack up with other foam tips. And first, let's quickly talk about pricing. These are the foam tips here, and they're clocking at about $4 per pair. For foam tips, you could say this is, yeah, normal priced. Complees, for instance, are about like $5 to $8 depending on where you buy them and which you get. And tin foam tips, for instance, are about $3 to $4 per pair. And yeah, this one makes them, yeah, pretty much in between there. Although in the grand scheme of things, when you factor in something like final E-tips, which are like $8 per pair, X-elastics like $9.5, or crystal tips with like $12.5, you could still say these are rather affordable or cheap. So that way definitely going on for them. And yeah, after introduction, let's directly come to comfort. And let me just remove one so I can get this closer. This is the tip, and it does come with a pretty dense and yeah, very bounceable foam. So even if you put this in your ear, you will still have an, yeah, I want to say like good pressure applied in all directions, because those are pretty bouncy and generally very dense. Unlike complees, for instance, which I have in the cut version here, and sorry, it's a bit dirty because I wear them, as you can clearly see, is definitively quite a bit less bouncy, and yeah, once it warms up, it basically stays confined to your ear shape, and they do get pretty comfortable. These, however, don't really do that. I'm not sure if it's actually memory foam, because even if I try to warm it with my fingers, you can see it's bouncing back relatively fast. Although you can see here, it does keep its shape, but that could also be just because I'm pressing it. So yeah, but generally this means these are not the most comfortable foam tips, but they are very comfortable, and I did like them. I want to say even more than, for instance, tin foam tips. Yeah, especially because of this more like ball-shaped shape or ball-shaped form that they have here. I think they definitively do fit better than the normal, let me just say random normal foam tip here. You can see it's relatively long, and yeah, it's also relatively thick. And I generally do like this ball shape more than the normal foam tip shape. Adding to this probably is also that it's shorter, as I said. And yeah, generally I think it's a pretty comfortable tip. My main problem though is that S, what I have here, is still 11 millimeters in diameter, which is really not so small for S tips, and M is already 12 and L is 13. So I think if you have big ears, maybe L would still be too small for you. This should be like 14 millimeters maybe, and M is probably okay, but it kind of lacks an SS and kind of an ML option, or like an LL option when L is 13 here in my opinion. So this can lead to comfort problems if your ear canal is not, what they have at S, M, and L. But yeah, but generally S was fine for me. It's not the most comfortable, but it fits very well, and it definitely stays safe in my ear. Although I have to say, I did like this one most on medium to short nozzles, because if the nozzle gets a bit longer, it's still, yeah, it's too bouncy and too thick to get a deep insertion in my ear canal. Yeah, but your knowledge may vary, and yeah, depending on which IEM you put it on, yeah, it can vary quite a bit here. So overall, yes, I would say these are still comfortable. I didn't get any pressure hotspots in my ear, which, for instance, let me get a cut foam tip again. But the main problem is with these, the silicone inside here, this can create hotspots in your ear canal, and these just don't have that. Most likely because they use a kind of a weird shaping in here. So you can see this is all silicone at the bottom, and then it gets like a bit smaller, and then you can see the groove where actually the nozzle gets in. So this generally means that, yeah, you don't have pressure hotspots in your ear canal, and that's a good thing. But still, because it's very dense and very bouncy foam, it is not the most comfortable thing. in the grand scheme of things, or like in overall ranking them totally subjectively, I would say X-Elastics most comfortable, followed by cut foam tips, followed by spin fit on the same as liquid silicons, then BGVP foam tips, like almost the same as crystal, like definitely crystal are completely different tips, but I think in terms of comfort, I think they are relatively similar. Finally, a bit below that, just really a bit, then spring ear tips, and last but not least, the Z Fit, the normal ones. They're really not good, and I cannot recommend you buying them even today, just are not worth it. So yeah, that's it about comfort. Let's talk about noise isolation, and let me get a pair of foam tips in here. So generally, these are pretty good for noise isolating tips, and yeah, like most foam tips, they definitively isolate quite a bit better than silicon, and these are probably the best thing that you, like foam in general is the best thing that you can get if you need best isolation out of your in-ear. And yeah, for comparison to Compli here, I think the foam of Compli is still a bit better, and I do like it a bit more for noise attenuation, but this could also be generally because you can see this silicone ring here. This might deteriorate isolation a bit more than what Compli foam tips would do. Or maybe just because this is because it's more like more pliable, maybe this confines better to my ear canal and isolates a bit better. But yeah, these are definitely well isolating foam tips, and on my total arbitrary scale from like 10, which is like the best foam ever, to like 0, which is the worst silicon tip ever, these are definitively high up there and reach like an 8.5 to 9 in terms of isolation. Definitively really good, and yeah, I can recommend them if you just want to go out and yeah, be more shut off from your environment. And then next, let's talk about shaping sound. And as again, I will put this into two chapters. First is subjective and second is objective. Subjective, let's start there. So my main problem is I have seen a few graphs of foam tips, and generally these do tend to attenuate like mid to upper treble frequencies a bit, and it's kind of these tricky things. If you have seen a graph and you know what to expect, your brain also shapes the sound like that and you think you hear it. So to my ear, when I just listen to whatever IEMs I put this on, I think they do attenuate it mid to upper treble transitions a bit, like just a bit, not a lot, but a bit. But again, because I've seen graphs and I'm a bit influenced there, maybe that's just how I expect them to sound like. And that's because that's when also makes them sound like it, because I just expect it. But generally, I don't think these do different things from other foam tips. And if you like the sound of foam, you will also not be complaining here. And on the upper hand, or the opposite side, if you don't like the sound of foam tips or like the general how they shape sound, I don't think this will do much in the way either. Also, let me note here, maybe the mesh here could influence the sound by absorbing like upper treble frequencies, maybe. But again, it's just, we talk about subjective, so I'm not sure if I really hear it. Could also be that I was sick in the last few weeks and maybe that's then influenced my hearing there. I don't know, so let's keep it at that as subjective. Like subjective, maybe it could influence mid to upper treble frequencies, but I'm not sure because I expect it. Now let's come to objective sound, and here I will throw on measurements again. One is done with the H40 and one is done with the LZA7. And I think we'd first take a look at the LZA7, and there's a big surprise here. These tips seem to attenuate about 2K to 4K a bit. It's like 2 to 3 decibels, so it's not a whole lot, but there seems to be an attenuation here. So if your IEM has a bit more like upper, mid to lower treble frequencies here, I think this could help reducing that a bit, at least on the LZA7 as shown here. Also to my surprise, keep a look between like 6 and 10K. Also very interesting, but there's no attenuation here. So my general hearing here might actually be wrong if you just look at the LZA7. Because this is basically the same as, for instance, what is the blue line here, X-Elastics? So very similar there, and that's kind of surprising to me. Of course, after that you can see it definitively does attenuate upper treble more. But again, we have an IEC 711 coupler. And yeah, everything after 10K is not so reliable. So let's just say it does not seem to attenuate between like 6 and 9K. And after that, let's maybe keep this open for another time. Or maybe when there's a better microphone that I have to do more accurate measurements. And then next, Let's take a look at the H40. And as we can see here, there's not a lot happening. Like there's basically no attenuation again in between like 2 and 3K. There's like literally it's almost the same as all of the other tips. And interestingly, after that, it also follows the same trend as most of the silicon tips. Very interesting to see here because yeah, to my ear, other IEMs, I thought it could attenuate a bit, but as you can see here, it clearly did not. So yeah, that's the so far for the objective sound measurement here. Again, this is only my measurement rig and it's only 2 IEMs because I can't measure a lot of them, but this is just supposed to give you an like kind of small picture of what this foam tip can do on different IEMs. And then last but not least, before we come to the verdict, let's talk about additional factors that come with this tip. And let me get the second one in so you can see. First, there isn't mesh here, which is nice. This should prevent your IEM from getting clogged, but the BGVP did not do a good job in gluing it in. You can already see here it kind of dissolved and you can see the mesh disintegrating, and this already happened when I put it on the second IEM or so. So really the mesh in the front is not durable and they should think about better glue or better mesh, or they definitely change something here. This is not a durable mesh in the front. However, what I think is durable is the foam tip itself. It's very dense, like really dense, and it's very, yeah, like bouncy. So it should definitively live longer than, for instance, the complete tips here, which I cut a bit, but yeah, you can see even there seems to be like a bit of deterioration on the surface. I've worn this for a few weeks and then cleaned it with an like wet towel or wet cloth. Cloth, it's cloth, okay. And you can see it's basically looking like new, unlike complete here. So yeah, this seems to be a relatively durable foam tip, which is nice. And the thing that we have to keep in mind though is this thing here, or like the way this is made, it does not make it mountable on thick nozzle IEMs. So for instance, if you have something like the variations here, you can't mount it. It's impossible. This is just not like not pliable enough for silicon here, but you can mount it there. I think maximum where you can put this on is like 5.5 millimeters or so. 6 might be already a bit of a stretch, but it depends. Maybe if your lip at your IEM is relatively thin, maybe you could still mount it on a 6mm nozzle, but I could not get it to fit on anything that is yeah, more wide there. Yes. Oh, also keep in mind, you can see the inside here is not so deep. So if you have a nozzle with a pretty like wide lip at the front, this will definitively push through the fabric in the front here. And maybe that happened with the A7 when I mounted, because that has a relatively wide lip. But yeah, just keep in mind, this is probably not made to be put on like wide lip nozzle IEM, so it just won't fit too well there. And so what else do we have? I think that's pretty much it, because cleaning is as it is for most other foam tips. Please don't use alcohol. This is going to absorb in here and it can deteriorate it. Just use a cloth, maybe with a tiny bit of soap that's a bit wet, and wipe it clean. Should be totally enough, and yeah, then let it dry a bit and it should be fine. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Then let's come to the conclusion. While these foam tips for kind of a more budget company definitively are not cheap in quotes, they are still more on the affordable side and are a bit cheaper than Complis. And I also think the shaping here is definitively better than Compli, because when you get a ball-shaped tip from Compli, it will look like this. And yes, this did get yellow over time here, but you can see the sizing difference. This was M, and I think when I bought it, it was only available in M. So it's like, it's absurdly big. And even if I try to squish it, like I can't get it small enough squish to fit my ear. So yeah, this definitely is nice with the S tips here, because they are definitely smaller than other tips. And that makes them not unique, but unique enough in my opinion. But I can still say, if you need a pair of foam tips that's like a bit smaller and more ball shaped, this can definitely be a decently recommended tip. Yeah, of course, the mesh inside here should definitely be worked on. And yeah, you can't put it on IEMs with a thick lip at the nozzle. But still, I think this is a decent choice if you want foam tips. And yeah, especially at this price, I can see this being an almost recommendation. Like, I don't want to go full out and say it's recommended, but it can be a good option if you're looking for foam. And yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, if you have criticisms, if you have other tips you can recommend, please leave a comment. And with this, Donspektor out.